Hey guys, in one of my interviews with veteran radio broadcaster Alan Cross, he spoke to me about how he broke the news of Kurt Cobain's death on the radio, and what that day was like from a radio broadcaster's perspective.
Something big was happening. We want to be part of it. We want to know as much as we possibly can. But there's no internet. There's no email. There's no YouTube. There's none of that sort of stuff. The only thing that people could do to get the latest news on what was happening was to listen to the radio. That was it. And I remember that day being, okay, this is our JFK moment. This is our John Lennon was shot moment. This is our Elvis Presley died moment. Everybody is depending on us to tell them what's going on. And the way things had evolved was, this was as close to delivering the messages, the news in real time as we could get. Now, we had a teletype, which would spit out the news, from all the different news services. So they were the ones who were gathering the news on our behalf. The only other thing that we could do is get on the phone and call anybody that we might know in Seattle or somebody associated with the band to give us an update on what was going on. And it was really old school. So, at 3:30, Anita, who was my newswoman at the time, came in, handed me the bulletin from the Associated Press, and I read that on the air. And that was like Walter Cronkite taking off his glasses and telling everybody that JFK had died at Parkland Hospital.
That's crazy. And how did that affect you emotionally at all that day? Like, how did you handle that personally?
No, well, you get in the zone. And the zone was, okay, we got a job to do. This is really important. Don't screw it up. Let's be as accurate as we possibly can. And remember that people are depending on us, not any other radio station in the city. Us, and specifically me, because it all happened when I was on the air. So it was me and Anita. And I don't know, I probably have never had a larger audience than I did that day, because news started coming in at 2:00. And then every 10 minutes, Anita would break in with more news. And then I would say something. And so 2:00, 2:15, 2:20, 2:25, 2:45, another newscast at 3:00, 3:15, and then 3:30, there's the news.
That's
so for that hour and a half, 2 hours, it was like, wow, because we didn't hear anything. So Kurt was found by the electrician around 9:00 in the morning, Seattle time. So that would have been noon. So by the time everything started to drift out, it took about 90 minutes for the first story to move on the wire, saying that a body has been found at 171 Lake Washington Boulevard East. And that is the residence of Kurt Cobain. There seems to be a violent death. So it's like, okay. All right, we know where this is going. It's either one of Kurt's drug buddies has died, or it's Courtney, or it's Kurt.
I was far too young to have any personal recollection of Kurt's death, but in my lifetime, I remember perfectly Chris Cornell's death. I was in my kitchen, and then on the TV, it said, rock star Chris Cornell has passed away, and I was shocked. And then I remember I was driving to work, and then it came on the radio, and I actually just pulled over and for a second to listen to the radio and to hear what they're saying. And I just remember being kind of shocked by it. Was Chris Cornell's death similar at all in the way you guys handled it on the radio, or did the internet change that experience?
The internet changed the experience because it got out on Twitter first. So everybody was talking about it by the time we got on the air with it, because, the internet moves at the speed of light. And the only thing that moves faster than the speed of light is bad news on the internet. So we couldn't compete, because a lot of us, and if we do it right and we use the platform properly, Twitter is the one of the greatest breaking news sources that has ever been invented. That's where I heard about Michael Jackson. So I was coming home from work on the GO train, and I'm flipping through my Twitter feed, and it's like, here it is. And from there, it just exploded.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, I was going to ask you about Chester Bennington, but that was so quickly afterwards. I guess it would have probably been more or less the same kind of.
It was kind of the same thing, but for some reason, well, it was also shocking because Chester seemed to be, I don't know, he just seemed to be such a likable guy, and I think people were, because he was also so very open about his mental state, that a lot of people identified with him, because, people who were hurting and so on. So that when he died, there was like, oh no, he couldn't make it. Something happened. Must be a mistake, or he gave up, or man, he must have been in pain. That kind of thing. But it was still the same kind of shocking thing because we didn't expect it. Nobody saw it with both Chris Cornell and with Chester Bennington. Nobody thought.
Do you think that Kurt Cobain's death has made him into more of, I guess, for lack of a better word, a legendary figure than if he was still alive?
Yeah, I think so. Again, he's like Jim Morrison. He's like Jimi Hendrix. He's like Janis Joplin. He, died at that magical age of 27 at the height of his powers.
Do you think the fact that Kurt Cobain passed at such a young age and that Nirvana was only around for a handful of years, do you think that contributed to their fame in a certain way?
Absolutely. The fact that they burned bright and very loud for a very short period of time. I mean, it's such a rock and roll story. It's the kind of thing that people gravitate to. But none of that would have mattered had the music not been any good. Now, what people forget is that when Nirvana released the Utero album in 1993, people were getting tired of them. They were beginning to move on to other forms of alternative music beyond grunge, Industrial Chili Peppers, Nine Inch Nails, go on. And when the first week in the United States, the In Utero album, I mean, one of the most anticipated records you would think of that decade, it sold less than 200,000 copies in the U.S. the first week. So people were growing tired of it. And when they heard it, it was, well, this isn't Nevermind Part 2, which is what we wanted. It was something a lot more raw, a lot more rugged. And where were the catchy hit songs like, Come As You Are and In Bloom and Smells Like Teen Spirit and so on? It just wasn't received. And it was considered by the record company to be substandard. In fact, they made him remix it. And when the audience heard it, it was like, okay, this is good, but it's not what we expected. Oh, by the way, we've got other alternative music to listen to now. In 91, they didn't, not really. But now things had completely exploded and opened up.
I heard somewhere, I'm not sure if this is true, but I heard it on a radio station a couple of years back, and it's always stuck in my mind. Somebody was saying that prior to Kurt's death, Pearl Jam was actually starting to become more popular than Nirvana, and then
no, that's not necessarily true. Pearl Jam had a very long and slow rise. Their album came out in the summer of 91, and people weren't really sure where to categorize them. I mean, we at The Edge held off playing Pearl Jam because we thought they were just another mainstream rock band. Same thing with Alice in Chains. We wouldn't touch Alice in Chains at first because, oh no, that's just another, mainstream rock band, and we're an alternative station. But after a while, until really 92, we kind of avoided the band because of that, I guess it's a stigma or that preconception of what they were. But by the time Kurt dies, Pearl Jam is definitely bigger than Nirvana. Their Versus album, when it came out, sold more records in a week, almost 900,000 records in a week, and that was a record for that time. So yeah, they were certainly bigger than Nirvana by the time they got to their second album.
Should Kurt not have passed away, and there's this kind of legend around the band. Do you think that right now Pearl Jam would have remained the more popular band, quote unquote?
I do, and I think what would have happened is that I think that Nirvana would have probably broken up anyway after the Utero album, and Kurt would have gone on to do something on his own as a solo artist. If you listen to some of the tapes that he left behind, he was definitely looking to change the kind of music he was making. And I think he was a little bit self-destructive when it came to his idea of being famous. He would not, he had all the money he needed. So he was very much an artist and had, tasted fame. And it's like, okay, I've been there, done that. Now I'm going to go try something else. And so I think that's what would have happened. Kurt would have become some sort of, he might have become like a Mark Lanigan, who was the singer of the Screaming Trees. He might have become somebody, like Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age, who went and did all these projects, and his tastes and styles went with the wind. I think that's what would have happened. Nirvana would have never made it through 1995.
Because there were many stories suggesting that Kurt wanted to do some kind of an acoustic Nirvana record with Michael Stipe.
100%. He actually had a plane ticket to go see Michael Stipe in Georgia, and he never got on the plane.